Welcome back. This is a special, special day. The 100th episode of the C-Suite Unfiltered with Mike Andes. Mike, how are you doing on this 100th episode morning?
Good, good. Like realistically, do you think we were gonna make it to 100 episodes?
Well, that was going to be my first question. Is like, did you
Oh,
think this would
really?
ever happen?
No,
How
I
did
did
you
not think we
feel?
would
Is it?
last to 100.
Did you? Why? Tell us why.
Most people give up because the first 500 videos don't get a lot of views.
That's fair. What do you say? I guess I wasn't planning on divulging or going into this. But what would you say is like? Do you think we'll hit 200? Do you think this is something that fizzles out? I know we've obviously, the viewers, we didn't like publicly say this, but they've probably noticed we are posting a little bit less. So we have switched to more of a bi-weekly schedule. You're obviously very busy. I'm busy working on some developments that you have me overseeing, and so we were like, hey, let's just switch to bi-weekly. So any thoughts on that looking forward? And it's impromptu. So.
I don't know. We'll figure things out as we go along here.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. Well, welcome back. It is the 100th episode. And we do appreciate everyone listening and watching. We would only do these if people did find them engaging. And we do get comments from people reaching out to us that they do like them and that they want us to release more. So we're going to keep doing it, at least for the time being. So let Mike know if you want us to keep doing it. And we'll go from there. But I thought for the quote unquote 100th episode, I wanted to do a callback. So someone did put in the comments, a couple people I think put in the comments of the last episode, was like, you should go through and like highlight some of the funniest moments or the best takes from all of your previous episodes or from some of the early episodes. And I was like, it's a great idea. Like, let me look into that. That takes a lot of work. So I'm not taking the easy route here, but I thought, you know what? I'm actually going to go back to what was, and I'll put this up on the screen here. I'll put a screenshot of the thumbnail. I'm going to go back to what was episode 0 of the C-Suite Unfiltered. It was technically not an episode of the C-Suite Unfiltered. 2.5 years ago, Mike invited me onto his main channel to interview him. And some of you probably watched that interview. And I thought, you know what we're going to do? Without prompting Mike, I'm going to ask him the exact same questions that I asked him about 2.5 years ago. And then we, as the audience, as the listeners, will get to see how his answers have changed. And then maybe next week or in future episodes, we can talk about how his answers have changed over 2.5 years, because I can almost guarantee Mike probably doesn't remember every question I asked him. I didn't even remember every question I asked him, but I found my notes. I rewatched the video. So we are going back to episode 0 of the C-Suite before it was even named anything. And I'm going to re-ask Mike the same questions. How do you feel about that, Mike?
Sorry, I muted myself. I was going to
You're good.
MikeAndes.ai.com/AI, and I was trying to get the best moments of the podcast, seeing what it
Yeah,
would
well,
say.
I thought about that, but we're gonna go back to episode 0. So it was not technically
Oh,
a
okay.
C-Suite Unfiltered. It was ultimately just an interview that I did on your channel. So if you're okay with that, we're gonna dive in. Does that sound good?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
All right, perfect. So 2.5 years ago, you asked me to pop on your channel to interview you, and my first question was about your day. So you had recently said on a mastermind at the time that your day was 95% Zoom calls and meetings. I want to know, is that still the case? Is that what you are still doing, 2.5 years later? Has it changed? Is it still that many Zoom calls and meetings? Like, what does your day-to-day look like right now for everyone kind of on the outside looking in?
A lot less. A lot less. I would say half compared to then. Then 2.5 years ago, we were just ramping up Copilot, so there's a lot of like hiring, engineering calls. I was on every single stand-up, etc. So I'm not on those anymore, and there are people in place to make sure those go smoothly. And I'm thinking much more like content-related stuff, strategy-related stuff. What are the 2 or 3 things we can do this quarter to make sure the owners are served more at Augusta? And then just longer term, like things like the book that take forever to build, but kind of become the cornerstone of the principles we teach at Augusta. Usually bring in a lot of leads and attract good talent. So I'm much more in like the talent acquisition, strategic thinking, and creating content realistically. Like it seems like you're such a content creator, but realistically, like
Yeah.
usually those frameworks is what we use for improving the systems at Augusta. Things like Augusta leads I spend time on. So yeah.
what do you want your day to look like? So I'm just going just straight from kind of my script from the previous episode or unreleased episode 2.5 years ago. I followed up with, what do you want your day to look like? Is that what you want, or is that what is currently needed for the business? Would you prefer your day to look something different, or did you like what it was a couple years ago and you like it less now? Like, what has that evolution been like, and what do you want your days to look like?
I don't really care. I just want whatever's best for the business. Like back then, that was required. Now it's not so much. And even 3 or 4 months ago, it would have been different. Just because like there's a period of time where like I needed to jump back into the businesses and kind of get my hands dirty a little bit. So as I move out of that phase, like I just like thinking more long term strategic stuff. Even like with like where we're going with Copilot, and I don't want to say too much there. So yeah, just like lots of stuff.
You know what's crazy is in that interview, Copilot is not even mentioned. It is not even a whisper, because
Really?
it wasn't even a thought at this point. Well, it was a thought, but it was nothing publicly released. There was nothing.
Did I really not say the word? Did I not say
You
anything?
never,
'Cause-
at least. Okay, so I'll hand up. I didn't listen to the whole interview. I didn't have time to go back through the whole interview.
Wow.
But about 70% I did listen to, you don't mention Copilot. We're talking
Wow.
specifically Augusta and the Augusta franchise.
I
and
kept
the
it pretty
content.
tight. I kept it really tight until we launched at conference.
Yeah, because I think that was recorded right before the launch, like the announcement.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, which is kind of crazy. So this will change probably a lot of your answers to maybe some later questions that are going to come. So part of kind of my probing into this is because at the time, the 2.5 years ago, you were doing more of a vlog style channel, and obviously the channels changed, and we'll get into some of my questions later that talk a little bit more about the content and the media side. But I pressed a little. I was like, hey, why don't we, remove the veil a little bit? Why don't we peel back the curtain and go, as I said, full Barstool? Why wouldn't we make it more of a dramatic vlog style where everybody inside of your business has like characters in a story?
Oh, yeah. I remember
And
this.
creating more of a narrative around you building the business and not just the logistics and the X's and O's of building a business. So has your opinion on that changed? Has it gotten stronger? Like, what are your thoughts on going more, and I know Barstool, I'm just using it as a stand-in, but going more the vlog style where you are really opening everything up for everyone to see what you're doing instead of just the X's and O's of business?
I definitely don't want to go the Barstool route.
Yeah.
I think if we would have done that and then gone into bug hell, it would have been catastrophe. Also, just like there's a lot of things that in the past few years I would like to think I've learned and just become better at. And one of them was just like dealing with mid-level managers individually and helping them in their departments, and then just being able to step back and praise them for what they did. And I think if we were sharing all the little X's and O's of what we were doing, I wouldn't have that opportunity because I would get the credit. And so, like, we're not trying to build a business around my candies here. We're trying to build a business that like serves the owners, serves the industry, and it's not really the best use of our energy to just make me look good all the time. There's a certain level of credibility that needs to be built and authority around the content, but like long term, like Augusta, Copilot, these brands need to surpass me and outlive me. And so I think if we showed all the X's and O's, I would get way too much credit because I would be looked at as the quote-unquote grandmaster, when in reality I'll come up with the idea, but then someone else is executing on it. And a lot of too much of the praise usually goes to the person that comes up with the idea, and instead of the person that's executing on it. And so, in my opinion, it would be detrimental to like what the vision of the brand is.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know if you're taking notes or if you just got lucky there, but that's my next question. Is actually going into vision. So I think we're on the same train of thought here. And these are my notes from 2.5 years ago. I did save them. It does go into vision, and I appreciate you sharing that because my question, from 2.5.
Why is this uncomfortable? This seems so uncomfortable for me. I don't know why.
For you?
Just like
Because
retrospectively 2.5 years ago.
I think you're worried that your answers are maybe either going to drastically change or that.
Dude, a lot has has happened in 2.5 years, dude?
I know. That's why I was like, this is perfect. I think I was re-going through the interview. Like I said, I listened to like 70% of it, and I was like, oh, your answer would have changed there. Oh, you definitely wouldn't have said that now. So that's why I was like, this will be good. It's a good thought experiment. Just ask you the exact same questions. Now, obviously, my framing has changed. My experience has changed, so I might not ask them the exact same, but it'll be interesting to still see what your answers are. So don't stress. It's all good.
right,
None of these
fair.
were like overly pressing. None of these were overly pressing, but it is fun. So I did go to vision next, and I was kind of around the conversation of, as companies scale, and there was a phrase, a saying going around at the time, the only thing that you kind of treat as corporate about Augusta, or the only thing corporate about Augusta is what you treat as corporate. I remember that was actually one of your general managers, Corey, kind of had that sentiment, and it was that, yes, it is a corporation, yes, it is a large company, but it's only corporate in the way that you treat it as corporate, because it is still led by people. It is still founder led by Mike Andes and his team. And ultimately it is for business owners and very pro employee, right? Through our compensation packages and through P4P. But the question really was around, as Augusta scales, how do you not, lose the vision? It's still your business. Like, you're still being the founder leader of the company. But do you feel that it's hard to express that vision very clearly as you bring on more partners, and also as the external critics grow? Because that's a big part of, believing in your vision, is dealing with the critics. So do you feel that it's hard to express that vision, or has it gotten easier for you over time?
I think honestly, sometimes when you have opposition to what you're trying to do, you have to get much more granular and specific in terms of what the vision entails. And so I'd say the thing that differentiates 2.5 years ago and today is, like, I went through bug hell, and like it was a year of just a lot of pain. And so during those moments, like, you get really clear on the vision, because if you don't, you will quit. And so I would say, like, yeah, I would just, like, now I feel like, and it's funny, like, now I look as, like, I'm getting further and further away from a year and a half ago, for example. I'm starting to become more like, yes, I could handle that again. I could handle it again. And I know, like, in the future, I will have that same level again, and it will seem like a breeze. But then there'll be, like, another level of pain. And I kind of actually know when that thing's going to happen. And so, yeah, like, it just you more clear on why you're still in the game, because it's so painful and there's no reason to keep going. And so why do you have to come to grips with, like, why you keep going.
Do you feel that you have to answer to more people now that you have, the co-pilot team? Obviously the media team's grown, like, everything's grown. Even in the interview I said, I know you one day want a media team of like 5 to 6 people. That's what I said in the interview. And now it's
Really?
what, 7 or 8 or 9 or whatever.
It's like
So it's like
11.
things have scaled. Well, there you go. Things have scaled. So my number was half of what it currently is. So it's really cool to see the change. But do you feel like, because you brought on more people, both internally, right, your own employees, your own direct reports, but also more partners, right, people that are joining Augusta, and now subscribers, quite literally, to a software, do you feel like you have to answer to more people, or do you feel like your vision is still like the North Star, and that is the answer for people, if that makes sense?
I don't really think a lot about that. I think more about, like, I need to know why we're doing this, and, like, the vision of what we're trying to accomplish, and what people think of that. Like, I need my internal team to know what's going on, but external to Augusta Nation and customers of Copilot and people that are trying to support the vision, like, I really could care less. And so one thing that has changed in the past 2.5 years is I've shared what the vision is. Because 2.5
Yeah.
years ago, public was not in the cards.
Yeah.
Copilot wasn't even, like, we didn't know what was going to happen. And maybe I would have quit back then if I would have known what was going to happen. But, like, yeah, it's just, I think as founders, we need to know why we're doing what we're doing. We need to be able to express that to our team in a clear and concise manner. But ultimately, like, if you believe in the vision, that's all that really matters. If you believe in the vision enough, you will attract the right people. But if you allow 100 other voices, and if you have a public, facing any, you have employees and you have vendors and you have other people that you're connecting with as your business grows, it's more and more, like, just by default. And so if you're always caring about what they think about your vision, you will get derailed, especially when it doesn't seem like you're actually making any progress towards the vision. It feels like you're kind of stalling out or going backwards. And so I think the one thing that we've changed a lot is like last year, like a year ago, getting clear internally, like, hey, this is what we're going to do. Here's what they like. I've never talked about 8 to 10 years down the road. I don't think I've ever talked about like more than 12 months down the
Yeah.
road to all the
Yeah.
team. And so to share that was in a way like required to keep the team involved when things were really hard, and then just keep my head in the game in a way. And I knew I had that all in my head before, but I don't like saying stuff if I don't think we can do it. So even like when it comes to like the timeline of when we go public, like I've been pretty conservative with what I think we're gonna do, but like
Yeah.
I'm trying to beat it. It's just a function of I've never really shared prior to a year ago, like June 2024 is when I talked about okay, we're gonna go public, we're gonna bring the 3 companies together. Here's what needs to happen over the next 6 months, and then we did it in January. We brought it into the holding company, and essentially created $10 million out of thin air because the valuation went up by that much when we brought the 3 companies together. And so, yeah.
Yeah. Now, in that conversation that we were having 2.5 years ago, I thought something was very interesting, and I don't remember exactly how we got on this train of thought, but it was the comparison of vision to promises. And we were kind of going back and forth on is a vision a promise? Like, is the vision you set forth for Augusta a promise to the owners in Augusta? Is the vision that you have for Copilot a promise to the subscribers of Copilot? Where do you currently stand on that? And do you remember what your answer was 2.5 years ago?
I don't know what it was 2.5 years ago. I'll answer it as if you just ask it now. That's how I'm going to answer these questions.
Yeah, please. Well,
I
that's what I
would
want. Yeah, I want it. It's your now live reaction, and then you can go back and look at your answers.
I think that to an internal team member, I still consider it as a promise. Because if you're going to cast this vision in front of them, they are planning their job, they are planning their livelihood, they're planning their family, where they live, et cetera, all around this vision. And so if if you do not have a plan in place to accomplish the vision, if you do not actually strategically know how you're going to get there, I do think it's a pipe dream to think that you can just throw random stuff at the wall and just like make big we're gonna have all this. We're the size of business. Like, if you're going to say that, you better be like showing up to work. You better be having a plan in place. And so, I still do look very much as like when you spread forth a vision, I am making a promise to my internal team. I'm going to make this happen, and then to the external, they will judge me whether or not I execute on the vision, right? And one thing I've seen that people are relatively forgiving of externally is timelines, more than I thought. And I actually looked at Elon around this a bunch with like the Cybertruck. He promised it in 2020. It came out like 2024, and so and then it came out like it was like there was a lot of defunks and there's been some problems with it, right? So, but he's 4 years late on his timeline. Somehow he's still worth hundreds of billions of dollars, and whether or not you like him politically or not, I could care less. It's just a function of, he's obviously been successful, and so I've just been much more about like, hey, the vision matters a lot. And it matters to customers, it matters to third-party stakeholders, it matters to my internal team, and being better about sharing that is something I'm still learning and realizing it's a high leverage use of my time. In the past, I'm just so used to doing things and being busy, whereas now, like sometimes putting together a report for the leadership team or giving kudos to someone or just like expressing the vision to the team, like telling them why Copilot exists, telling them why Augusta exists, like you feel like sometimes you're like, it was when I heard someone say the other day, a founder's job as a business really begins to scale is simply just being good at telling the same stories over and over as if it's the first time.
I agree with that. I agree with that like wholeheartedly. No, and if I could take over there actually, and this is kind of going down a rabbit trail, but I agree with you because I had the opportunity to, I don't know if we even talked about this on the pod. A long story short, there's a franchise show in Seattle. They had a speaker drop out. They asked if I could fill in. I said, sure. Don't need to go into the details of that, but someone who was there who is a franchise owner, very cool guy, and he has an education center, and it's all around his story that he moved. He's an immigrant to the U.S. And felt that he was undereducated and felt that people didn't understand him, but it was just he didn't understand English. And so he came across as uneducated. He came across as someone who did not have the skills to be part of our society, if you will. And so his passion, his vision was to create education centers for immigrants and for people that do not speak English as their first language, and to support them and help them grow. And now that's expanded outside of just language to like tutoring centers. And that's his franchise. Very cool guy. And I'm blanking on his name, so I do apologize. I would love to give him a shout out right now. And I can't remember the name of his franchise, but it's a learning center. If I can think of it, I'll put it in the description. He's awesome. I'm just blanking on it right now.
Tough business, man, with AI coming around. But
yeah, totally. But he asked me, he was like, hey, you guys, because he's like 30 locations. So he just asked me, he was like, hey, you guys have like 170, what could I be doing differently? Like, do you have any tips for me? And I was like, well, I'm not the guy to really help you, because it's just in such a different realm. But I said, if I could give you one piece of advice, your story is extremely powerful and you need to lean into that story. Because guess what? I didn't remember his name. I don't remember the name of his business, but what did I do? I told you a story, right? Because his story was so powerful. And so I think leaning into that story, and then how does that story then traject to vision is, as you said, extremely powerful. And that was my piece of advice to him. I was like, you need to get tired of telling your story. I was like, myself and other members of our management team, our leadership team of the businesses that we represent with Mike Andes know his story verbatim. Why? Because it's so powerful and we've heard it a million times, right? And it's not a bad thing. Like, we should know your story because it is powerful and it helps express the vision. So I would agree with you in that regard. I still don't know if I agree that vision is promise, but we can leave it there.
I think you just like to hear the vision. Like, you should like just go for it. Just like just say it. I just want to hear it, because I was so much more conservative like 2.5 years ago in terms of sharing what that vision was. Like the goals for the leadership team was like, yeah, we're just gonna do more and better, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Well, anyways, that was vision. Now I do a follow up there on vision, and this was me asking, as a rookie salesman, I was looking for anything I could do. I still consider myself a rookie every day, but I did ask you, I was like, hey, this is a little bit more specific for me, but now that Copilot's in the picture, I think it's still a good question to revisit, which is, what makes you /Augusta /Copilot different than any other large scale corporation, franchise, SaaS? Like, what is your differentiating factor now? What do you feel that is at this current time?
I think okay. So here's the thing. Okay, so if you're talking about the franchise, I think that like, especially in the past 2.5 years, like, I do believe that anyone starting a lawn care business should use Augusta. I wouldn't have said that 2.5 years ago. I believe that everyone should. Like, the math is on our side. And when I say our side, I mean Augusta Nations. And so I'm more confident than ever. And then, like, just us getting better at training, us getting better at what is the system, what is the model, what does the Augusta model look like? 6 to 8 employees, 800,000 annual revenue, 3 years, profit mode, general manager in place, and $200,000 in profits. Like, that is the model. And so getting more defined with that has been like for the franchise. From Copilot's perspective, I think that I would hope that the track record we have with Augusta, and as like making it the obvious choice, is the reason that someone would join Copilot, knowing that I will do the same thing with the software side. And I don't say that out of hubris, because it's very extremely difficult, and I know we're up against people that are spending hundreds of millions of dollars to make sure that doesn't happen. So I don't say it out of like pride. I'm just saying, like, I won't stop until that has happened, where I can confidently say it is the best software and every single home service business owner should use it. And so I don't think we're there yet. It took me 5 years to do that with Augusta, and I think it'll take me about the same period of time for Copilot. And when we get there, like, I'm looking forward to it, because we're just starting to gas, like, in my opinion, the franchise. And it's because it's like, hey, I appreciate everyone's joined and believed in the vision and believed in me, and like got a lot of value from Augusta from the beginning till now. But like, it's only been the past year where I can confidently tell every person that, like, this is the way you should do it, and I have full confidence, full belief, and full conviction. And so when that happens with Copilot, then like we have a whole other level we will go to, because it's one of those things that's easier to scale simply because it's software, and instead of having to build huge amounts of infrastructure like we've had to do at the franchise level to support incoming customers. And so the reason someone should join, what makes us different, I would say Like it sounds horrible, but like I really do care about their businesses. I don't even say
Yeah.
horrible. I mean, like it just sounds so cliche, but like I really do
Yeah.
care. And so I think it is evident in a lot of the decisions I make internally. And I hope that the content kind of expresses just how much I actually care about these owners. And I know what they feel, I know what they're paying. And so I'm sure there are other people that have gone through this industry, they have grown a business, and then they start software companies or do other things in the industry. And I wish them well, obviously. And I think that because I have the unique ability to be able to stay grounded with the owners, and every single day I have phone calls being answered that are in this industry. I talk to owners every single day that in this industry. I travel to a whole bunch of different services and get ideas of different industries. I think that would probably be the differentiation right now. Down the
Mhm.
road, it's the vertical integration of all these things together that will give us a big leg up. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good. No, I appreciate that sentiment, and I think I agree with it, and I think that your answer changed a little bit, but that's a good thing. I think it should
What did I
change in
say
the
back
evolution.
then? What did I say back then?
I mean, I don't remember the specifics, and I don't want to be overly reductive, but I think it was more so less about you caring about the owners. Like this is just me, so don't shoot the messenger here. But it was more along the lines of like founder led. Like we're still founder led. We're still light on our feet. We have adaptability, and you do care about their businesses. But I think it was more leaning into the fact that like we were light on our feet and founder led, and kind of going by the beat of our own drum. Now that's very reductive version. You might have been much more eloquent than that, but that's kind of what I got out of it.
Yeah, the challenging part about saying something like that is
Totally.
the definition of that is different to everyone. So, for example, if I don't put one button where someone uses it a lot inside the software, they would say, "Well, do you really care about me?" And so it's sometimes difficult to say that,
Mhm.
knowing that that definition to everyone is different. Like if I just said we will be the fastest software, or we will be the cheapest software, or we will be X software, that's easier to measure. But care is very very soft and
Yep.
very difficult to quantify. And so, but like what I know, like when I'm on the turnaround show, I don't even think about the cameras. Like it's
Yeah.
not even there to me.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's
Yeah.
difficult for me to get the owner to get there. It takes me an hour or so to try to get them to like, hey, let's focus on you in this business because like who cares about the cameras for a second? But like genuinely, like I'm not thinking about the cameras. I am trying to help this owner, and I really care. And I usually come like, very exhausted from coaching because we are dropped in. I don't really have a lot most of the time. It's more than half the time I don't have any numbers going into coaching on turnarounds because they don't have numbers, and so I'm like hypersensitive, and I'm not. I just get exhausted, and it's because
Yeah.
like I generally walk away from those knowing that if I'm exhausted, it's because I'm genuinely caring, and I'm like trying to focus on this. And the same thing happened back when I was doing surgery. Like I just come out of the surgeon, like I was just standing there for 5 hours, but like you just come exhausted because you're like really really trying to focus, and
Mhm.
so. Yeah, like I don't know how to quantify it other than that. Yes, I do care a lot.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you this as a compliment, if you will. Recently had a call with a husband and wife that are interested in joining Augusta. They've been looking at different franchises. They spoke to some that will not be named, but they, in their words, they said that they spooked us a little bit. They kind of spooked us, and then there were some follow up questions to that, and they asked me a very pointed question, and I just said, "Hey, we're just people," and like I saw them just relax. Right. I saw them just take a breath, and it was like, you are just people. And like, we've watched Mike, and we get a good feel for who Mike is and who your brand is and who you are on this call. And it kind of made them relax. And I think that is that unspoken care element that you've been able to really show, which is extremely hard and extremely hard to quantify. But I think that you're doing it well. And like, I think everyone on your team really does try to embody that. Even, yesterday in the co-pilot group, someone left a very like critical but like constructive, very constructive criticism post. The first comment within minutes of it getting posted was from Josh, who is, I can't remember his title, but high up in the co-pilot team. And it was just like, thank you so much for this thoughtful response. And then he just responded with like an essay back, and not arguing, just like, this is great, and here's why, and this is why we're not doing that, but here's where we could maybe implement. Hey, we understand your concern here, and here's why we're working on X, Y, or Z. And that in that moment just showed so much care from him. Whereas he could have been like, hey, thanks for the feedback, we'll look into this. He like took his time to basically like write an essay. So I guess there's me publicly giving some flowers to Josh unexpectedly. Like that showed care right in that moment. And so I think that you're doing good. And I think leading, if the vision is changing the level of professionalism, if the vision is helping small business owners get rich and not go out of business, like underneath all of that, you have to care. Right. And I think that you're doing good at that. So my response there.
Thanks. I
Yeah.
was talking last night with Brianna about she said I need to get better at taking compliments. So I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that I really do think that's it, because like, I don't know, I've had a hard time too as well, like quantifying, you know, working here for as long as I have. And people do ask like, oh, so like, why do you work there? Like, what do you do? You know, and you know, you give the surface level answer a lot of times because you don't know if it's going to be a deeper conversation. But a lot of times it's like, no, I know that my boss truly cares about what he does. I know that he cares about the people around him, and I know that he cares about the people that we are selling to. Yes, it is business. We are selling products, but we actually care about the people that are using those products. And I think that is something that has become more clear to me. Obviously, I'm excited by the vision. Obviously, I'm excited by the change up in the, you know, the rapid change of pace or decision making that we go through. But I think it is just the bigger side of like, we actually care about what we're doing. And I think it would be hard for me to be a cog in a machine where we didn't really care about what we were doing. Right.
Yeah, I think it's important to like always peel back. Like if someone's listening to this and like, well, what's the vision? Like, what's my vision for my business? And like, how do I have any sort of like, I'm just quote unquote, I'm just cleaning houses or I'm just cleaning pools. Like, why does this matter? And ultimately, what I do believe is that you want to draw it back to the good of the community and the good of the whole and the good of humanity. Because like I do believe inherently we as humans realize that we must improve the collective in order for us to evolve, and whether it be technology or our well-being or our economy or our infrastructure, we have to work together. And so I would just like whether it be a team that you're trying to build in terms of employees, whether it be the community that you live in, trying to give back to them, whether it be the business owners for us, like in the industry that we're working in. It's like make it about someone else. Stop making it about yourself. And as soon as you do that, responses to criticism are different because now we're looking at this as like a collaborative effort to improve the collective instead of to prove one to be right. And it is after Buckhead, like you're humbled so much, like publicly ashamed so much that like you have less ego to protect because it was all robbed of you. And so that was healthy. I think that was good.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too much. I'd like to keep it moving, but I feel like just like a sentiment there is like the early success of Starbucks. Like Howard Schultz was like, what is the end user experience? Like he felt these cafes, and was it Italy that he felt these cafes, these bistros, these cafes, and he was like, why can't we bring that to the U.S. because that is such a beautiful user experience, right? Like, yes, we want our coffee, yes, we want our caffeine, yes, we want our breakfast sandwich, but like we want a place that we feel comfortable, that we feel is like a lounge, that we feel is like an extra living room. I think he said in a couple interviews, like it's like, oh, I'm like in my living room, but I'm drinking craft coffee. This is awesome. Like his whole thought process of Starbucks was end user experience. Like, what are they going to feel? And that was what helped them on their trajectory. So yeah, I completely agree with you in that regard. All right, switching topics here, unless you had something else you wanted to add there.
I was just gonna say, like, yeah, like focusing on the experiences of the product. Like ultimately, most of us, our products are commodities. If we actually peel back the onion, it's just a function of what's the experience the end customer gets, and can we actually rally a vision around that. And so it wasn't coffee that he was selling; it was the fact that other people, you meet people at this coffee shop, and at this coffee shop, it's like one of the best things I always think about when it comes to this is a sign I saw at Sports Clips. Yeah, Sports Clips guy here.
Oh yeah,
Chico, let's go.
Yep.
Did I tell you about this?
Yes, it's great, and it's always stuck with me. I think it's fantastic.
Dude, really? Yeah, dude, it's so good. I was sitting in the chair, and the break room door opened up, and I looked up into the wall because I like seeing the behind the scenes, and so of course I was like right away like looking around what's going on. On the wall was this sign, and it was so good, and I always think about it, and it says to you, because it was an employee break room, right? So like this is where the team members at. It said to you, it's just a haircut. To them, it's a haircut for their proposal. It's a haircut for their prom. It's a haircut for like their first date. It's a haircut for the job interview. It's like, and like getting in the mindset, like to you, this is nothing, but to them, this is everything. And
Mm-hmm.
because it is everything to them, we should treat it as if it's everything to you. And that's where care comes into play. The care that for someone else, this means a lot, and to me, it means nothing. That's where care comes into play. And so, anyways, that I always think about that sign.
Yeah, no, yeah, I remember when you first told me about it, I was like, that's so smart. I love that. I've actually tried to have that posture a little bit on sales calls recently. I had this kind of
Yeah.
realization. I was like, people are literally inviting me into their house, like digitally, but like they're inviting me into their house. And like their background is their living room, is their like, yeah, I can hear their kids playing in the
Yeah.
background. Like
And to
they're
you,
inviting me in, and it's like, whoa, that's
yeah.
a big step, right? They're
And to
they're
you, like,
opening a Zoom call with a stranger.
you might talk to 8 or 10 people a day that are considering it, and so to you it's just like, hey, there's this thing, and like I need to say these things, and I need to weed out these people, and like last month I think like 3% of the people that you book calls with end up you allowing in. However, to you it can get routinized, but to them this is like career changing. This is they're moving their family. They are risking their entire life savings. There's such a higher level of risk there. And so if you can step out, and I'm not pointing out, I'm just saying in general, like if you can step out of the fact that to you it seems common and it seems mundane, but to someone else it is literally their entire life, you treat them differently. And you only treat them differently if you care. And so that's why care is such an integral part, because to the customer, it is everything. To you as a vendor, as a seller, it can become mundane simply because of routine and because you've done it many times.
Yeah, and I think that to put a bow on this question is why vision is so important, because then it grounds you back into like, I am doing this repetitive task. I am having these 8 Zoom calls in a row that can, yes, get tiring at some point. And yes, every call is different, but you're saying the same thing. It can get that redundant, and you kind of get bored almost doing it. But coming back to the vision of I actually care for these people that I'm talking to, and I want to give them opportunities to build awesome businesses. So I appreciate the sentiment, and I think that we have accurately described vision and how we can apply it in our daily lives. So thank you, sir. Now I'm going to drastically switch it up here, and this question that was probably the question I was the most nervous about asking when we did this pod 2.5 years ago. So to preface it in classically
I'm gonna
Park
guess. I'm
fashion,
gonna guess. I'm
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
guess.
yeah.
It's something gonna be like, give me personal advice for
Nope.
myself. No? Okay, all
No, I did ask for that. That is later. That's coming
right.
later. All right.
Okay.
So I will preface in classically Park fashion, which great leaders and coaches can turn their weaknesses into strengths. And I use the analogy of the 1980 Lake Placid Olympics when the U.S. men's hockey team went against the USSR, the Russian hockey team. And at the time, the U.S. Hockey Federation did not allow professionals to compete in the Olympics. But the Russian team was all professionals, right? There were all these late 20, early 30, just peak human athlete Russian hockey players. And the U.S. team was made up of college players, right? It was all college players. And then Herb Brooks was the coach, and he was tasked with taking this ragtag group of college players and getting them to compete against Russia, right? And it was a whole political thing, and it was an arms race, but it was the Olympics. So there's more implications than just a hockey game. And ultimately, Herb Brooks took their greatest weakness, the fact that they were underskilled, undersized, and hadn't played with each other, and made it their greatest strength by saying, no one will outskate us. Like that was their mantra. No one will outskate us. We're younger, we're hungrier, we're less experienced. So guess what? We're going to outskate everybody. Like we're going to make goals, they're going to make goals. We're going to miss hits, they're going to miss hits. But no one's going to outskate us. Like he drove his team to insanity with how much conditioning they did, but he knew that was their competitive advantage. It was their weakness was their camaraderie, but he knew that they could come together around that weakness and ultimately win. And so my question to you was something that you had said in your interview with Layla Hormozy. So this is when you talked to Layla Hormozy, actually, which is pretty cool. A little feather in your cap there. Is that you said in your interview with her about kind of looking for business advice. You said that Command Center was kind of your Achilles heel. It was your current weakness in the Augusta franchise in terms of scalability, not in terms of the product, but in terms of the ability for it to scale. So the question that I posed at the time, and it's still the same question, is how do you make Command Center your strength, or have you made Command Center more of a strength? And have you addressed any of the scalability weaknesses that you felt were present previously?
Yeah, so I look at it as if you're going to vertically integrate, there's going to be sections and links of the vertical integration that don't make sense economically and don't scale. So, for example, the reason that Tesla has such a massive hold on the specifically North America's electric car market is the fact that they own the gas stations. i.e. the electric chargers. But when you look at their valuation, no one gives them credit for the fact that they own all of those. And so like when that was a huge thing and they were pouring money into making these electric charging stations all over the country, no one looked at that as a smart. That was a huge capital expenditure. It was not what anyone like. There's nothing proprietary about a battery pack sitting there plugged into a car, but it is required to be able to control down the road what we now give them a lot of credit for, which is a network of charging stations that every single OEM is plugging into. Like they control it. Like they have a full out monopoly on it. And so, like, there's other ones out there, like Charge Point, et cetera, but like they don't even come close in terms of performance, speed of charge. The network is much smaller. Like, there's just so many factors against them. And so, how I look at Command Center is like it is the thing that is required that as autonomy and software start to become more and more integrated with our industry, it will be required to have human operators, but by the time that everyone wakes up to that fact, or that independent operators are able to compete in that level, we will have done it for 10, 15 years, and we'll have a huge amount of operating leverage and a moat around the commodity technology, which will be a robot. And so, I think there's been a lot of improvements. I look at it as mostly whether or not members of Augusta Nation are using certain departments. So like the percentage use of each department is really important. We track that all the time, and that's gone up like dramatically, like 40% over the past 6 to 8 months. And so there's always room for improvement. There's always areas because we're dealing with humans. And until AI and robotics take over everything, there will be humanity. And so how do we shore that up? How do we tighten that up? How do we improve the systems in the model? And so, whether it be Liz or Brian Taylor at Command Center, like there's just been really good leaders that stepped up and like, hey, like let's pick this thing apart and figure out what works, get a lot of feedback from the owners of what's working, what's not. And so it's been like an all-out collection of data, and even Liz, like most of her day is not just talking to owners, like, hey, what's working for you here? What's not working for you here? Like, if you want to know how to improve your product, talk to your customers, talk to the people that you're serving, and just ask them like plainly, like, how can I serve you better? And if you know the answers to that question and then you execute on them, you will make a better product and you will gain market share. And so I'm just trying to simplify it to that because it's so easy, especially with AI. To think, oh, we're going to run behind. Like, we got to do all this new stuff. And it's like, no, we need to take what we're currently doing, and we need to talk to the people that we serve and ask them how we can serve them better, and we need to execute well on those things. And so, yes, it is improved dramatically, and yeah, a lot of credit to the team on that.
Do you feel that you've addressed some of the scalability concerns? Because that was kind of the core of it, right? Talking about the weaknesses is that the Command Center was a weak product. Like you're addressing, hey, we're getting better, which is great. Like that's what all products should do if you want to stay ahead of the power curve, get better, serve your users better. But the scalability aspect, you still feel like that is a weakness, or have there been elements of AI that I know you've integrated? Like what does that still look like for you as Augusta continues to grow, and having the support of Command Center on the back end?
Yeah, like there's elements that we did in the past that really flies in the face of everything I talk about in terms of like simplification and standardization. And we did it in the name of trying to serve the owners more. And we had up to as like 23 departments inside of Command Center. It's just not scalable. Well, take that back. It's scalable, but it was going to be done. The time period in which we were going to be able to make it efficient was too long. Like we didn't have another 5 years to make sure that 23 departments were running well. So like we scaled back services the same way I talk about like standardization and simplification. And he had a huge impact in terms of like becoming deeper and better at the ones that we do offer. And so, if someone's in a home service business and you offer 15 services, like take your top 5, become really good at them, train your team better on those. They'll become more efficient. They'll become more proficient. They'll be faster to profitability in terms of training them. And so all of these things are true. Same thing on a phone, same thing with software. Like even with software, it's like we got to cut stuff out. Like we cannot be everything to everyone. We got to try to be the best dispatching service, but also have the best automations. We cannot also, like, there are companies that only do forms. Are we really going to be the best forms company? There are companies that literally all they do is figure out how to make forms better. And that is like 1%, not even 1% of what we do. And so it's like, is that going to be the thing we die on? Is that going to be what we become best at? And so, Yeah. I think about it a lot.
Yeah.
So yes, in
Yeah.
terms of simplification, yes, it's like we've simplified things, we've cut things down, we've narrowed it down so that we can become better at what we offer to the owners. And
Hmm.
the past 6 to 8 months, it's like one of the largest turnarounds and like changes I've seen in
Hmm.
customer sentiment, satisfaction scores, as well as use of the service. And I expect that to do the same thing over the next 6 months.
Yeah, that's awesome. We'll shout out the whole team at Command Center. All right, so I want to go into maybe one last question. We're not going to get through all the questions. That original pod we did record was an hour and a half long, actually. So we definitely aren't going to get into all the questions here. So we'll end with this one for today, and this will be a part 2, maybe a part 3. We'll see how deep we get on some of these. Now I am gonna use my exact data here. I didn't want to change anything because we are asking the same questions to see how your answers have changed or you've evolved in business. But this is
Next time we got to
yeah.
have like you got to be able to have the recoil. So like after did it just break up? There you go. We're back.
Yeah, I did. What'd you
Okay,
say?
we're good. Next time we got to have it where after I answer, you're like, well, actually, this is what you said.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, I thought about doing that, but I wanted to not taint your answer. But I guess if I let you answer, then come back. So either way, we'll figure it out. We'll get into it. So this one is around the franchise model. So going to use the same data, ask the same question, but just see if your answers changed or what you've now learned with a couple additional years of being a franchisor under your belt. So in 2020, the U.S. Census said that franchise businesses accounted for 11.4% of all sectors surveyed. 61% of Americans think that starting a small business is a, quote, good career path. Only 23% of those Americans look into franchising as a viable option. So why do you think people don't join a franchise over starting their own business, even though franchises, statistically speaking, almost always have higher success rates?
Mostly just because the initial capital investment. So if I want to start a restaurant, yes, I can go start a restaurant for probably a couple $100,000. Take one that's kind of gone out of business, has all the guts of a kitchen, and throw my paint on there, my menu, and be in business within $150,000 to $200,000. I can do that. So the barrier to entry is lower. That being said, the likelihood of success is greater if I use a company like Wingstop.
Yeah.
But it's going to cost me $2 million to build out and be part of their brand and go for a whole bunch of training and get a whole bunch of uniforms and get everything set up with the brand. So like there's way more barrier to entry when it comes to a franchise. And so that's why like you don't hear me talk a ton about levels of success, like staying in business for franchises versus not, because I know a big reason to that is because of sunk cost. And the type of buyer that is joining a franchise is more qualified because anyone can start a business. Anyone. So the likelihood of them failing is high. Whereas if you say right from the rip, there are certain quality metrics that were like literally 3% of people that try to join are joining Augusta.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you had like 90 something calls last month and like 1 or 2 people joined. And by the time you weed them all out. So you're weeding out all the people that are probably going to quit. That's really what's happening. And so if starting a business license had that same mechanism, then I believe that it would be similar amounts of
Fair, yeah.
I also think it also like let me contrary that is the type of person that starts their own thing is usually quote unquote if you have a spectrum they're going to be much more entrepreneurial, i.e. don't want rules, don't want structure, etc. So if that's like the most extreme version, I never want to have a single person tell me what to do, what color to paint things, or etc. Those people usually start their own thing. So what this also proves is that running a successful business does not mean you have to be entrepreneurial. You have to be able to live by the laws of business and follow certain systems and procedures that have a predictable outcome. And so this is also why I like what I just said can actually, I could flip it. I could say like, look, the most entrepreneurial people still have a lower success rate than franchisees, quote unquote. Because like if you have full 100%, you don't join a franchise because you want to do anything and everything. You want to move really quickly yourself. You don't want any connection to any other person. You want to be the lone wolf. And the likelihood of that success is so low. And the data is just like so pointed. Like everyone wants that. That is what is glamorized. And when everyone looks at people like Elon, like he has all these businesses. The likelihood of that success is so low. But I know that the likelihood of running a franchise that has 5, 6, 7 locations and building that throughout your career, being able to retire and sell it off, is like very high. And so the question also is like, why do athletes specifically, or doctors, dentists, et cetera, why do they love franchises? Because they know they're not entrepreneurial. They know they don't have a 10 out of 10 skill set when it comes to being an entrepreneur, and they're okay with that. They know they have a 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10. They ran their own law firm. They ran their own dentist firm. They know it's very difficult to find highly skilled doctors, et cetera. So like, I'm going to use this other model. I'm going to put money into it. I'm going to use it as a capital investment, and I'm not going to try to be the best entrepreneur. I'm going to follow the systems of business. I'm going to follow the laws of supply and demand, and I will just put my money into this thing. And so the success rate is higher. And so the question is, why do more people not join franchises? And in my opinion, it comes down to two things. One, it is a higher level of investment and upfront capital, a higher barrier of entry. And then second is the glamorization of being a lone wolf. When in any sector of the world, whether it be nature or the animal kingdom or humanity, the lone wolf always dies. And so being part of a community and part of a brand and part of other people does make you somewhat hindered in autonomy, in independent freedom, etc. But also it makes you safe. And in business, the only thing that keeps you in business is safety. It is stay in business. And so the likelihood of staying safe and staying alive in business is increased when you are part of a collective group.
Yeah, I agree with that. Now, I think that going back to something you said earlier, which is, we have made it clear from a math perspective that if you're going to start a lawn care business, like, you should just join Augusta. From a numbers perspective, from the support you're going to get, it really does just start to make sense. But I would push back on that with the initial fee, right? And I think that is going to this point, which is, if I am a more entrepreneurial person, if I do feel like I could get the business started by myself, sure, the monthly fees, the support you guys are getting me, that's great. I like it. Why should I pay you an initial fee to get access to that when I'm entrepreneurial? I can sell, I can do certain things. Like, I don't need to pay an initial fee. So what do you feel like is the sticking point? And I'm not asking just for me. I feel like I'm sure a lot of other franchises deal with that. Like, why should I pay you this big lump sum up front? Like, I see the value of the brand, but why should I have to pay you this huge amount up front? And I would say we're on the lower end of the spectrum, but you look at some brands' initial fees, they're talking 50, 100, plus $1,000, so what are your thoughts on that?
So if you look at any community, there's eventually some sort of taxation that has to happen. We call it taxes. Think of it more as like contributing to the whole. The healthy have to pay for the poor in health, and the sick. The rich have to pay for the poor. Like, this is like a commonality around community. There are going to be people that are stronger. There are going to be people who are weaker. There are going to be people who are richer. There are going to be people that are poorer. And as a collective, we have to accept the fact that there are going to be some givers and there are going to be some takers. And as long as we have more givers than takers, the community as a whole will grow. And so when we look at the deficit of the United States and we look at the debt, it is because there are more takers than there are givers. And so when I think about like an initial fee, for example, it is a contribution to the whole that as a whole will make us all more successful. It'll improve the training systems. It'll allow for infrastructure to be built out. It'll allow for software to be built out. Like, we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars developing Max AI, which now we are essentially now moving to a more off-the-shelf model through OpenAI and Gemini. But we were able to get 2 years of data, really figure things out. How do we integrate with this software? By spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, how do we do that? The initial fees. And so we take every dollar of that and they're able to put it into the collective. Now, the thing that's different is in most societies, it is when you pay into the system and then you take withdrawals down the road. And that's typically how most systems are built out. Whereas with the franchise model, we don't have 80 years or 60 years before we can actually we can't sustain that. Like, it's not economically viable. And so it's like, hey, we need upfront so that we can continue to invest into the model. And then down the road, our goal is like we give back. So that's why it's called the Give Back program. It's actually what it came from is like, hey, the same way that like you contribute throughout your whole career into like a retirement program or into a 401k or in an IRA, and then at the end of it, you withdraw it for retirement. This is the same thing. It's like, you have paid into the system, And then we have been able to use those funds to build the infrastructure for the collective, and then the give back program gives that back to the person that stays inside the system. The same way that someone pays into payroll taxes and into social security. Like the goal is like you get something back in return.
We should have when owners in Augusta go through the give back program and they get that initial feedback, we should give them like a social security card or like something, like make it like you're old now. Like it could be like an old person joke, like, hey, you're officially old. I know my dad, he was a career employee out at the place he worked at, and once you hit a certain number of years, they just call you dinosaur, and it's like a badge of honor that you're a dinosaur there. So we gotta do something funny. Give them a social security card, give them some little ribbing. You know, they're old now, but they've earned it. So we'll take care of our old here at Augusta. All right, well I'm gonna wrap it there because this is a long episode, and we can make this a part two. Get the people coming back. Hopefully everyone's enjoying this. If you have comments or you want us to maybe follow up on some of the questions I asked, obviously I'll link that video, that recording, that interview we did 2.5 years ago for you to go now and watch to get everyone excited. Hopefully, if not, my apologies if this is boring. Like and subscribe either way. But do you have any not financial advice to wrap up for this official 100th episode, part 1?
I know you do, so take it away.
I just have a quote. It's a good thought-provoking quote here, and I don't know who to credit it to, but I really like it. It's resonated with me more, and it is: you have to hate imperfections more than everyone else loves criticizing. So, yeah, if you hate the imperfections more, the criticism doesn't matter. But everybody loves criticizing. Everybody loves adding their 2 cents. That's why there's a comment section on everything, because we want people to add their 2 cents. And if you just hate the imperfections more, the criticism is null and void. So, my 2 cents.
Agreed. Your step program. We now have treadmills inside the office. Yeah. I got Lee, and as soon as Lee mentioned on the podcast he wanted one, I bought 2. One for me, one for him. You're gonna lift it up. Let's go. Yeah, so Lee has a treadmill. I have a treadmill. There's one problem. This is the non-financial advice. If you're gonna get 2 treadmills, you're gonna have to get 2 different remotes. So this manufacturer, unfortunately, we are 15 yards away from each other, and this will turn his on and mine on at the same time. So it took us. Yeah, this is me over here. Let's go. So it took us a few days to realize that the way to make this work was only turning the power switch on the device on when you wanted to operate it. But if the other person's using their treadmill, you can't really use your treadmill or like turn it on.
Yeah, and the worst part is our schedules are so inconsistent with who's in a meeting versus who's not. So like, it just is what it is. But I'm thankful for the treadmill. I've been walking a decent amount, but it's hard when our remotes have the same amount. Is it a radio signal? Is that what it is? I don't know.
Probably.
So yeah. Great, not financial advice. All right. Well, I just want to say appreciate everyone watching, listening for 100 episodes, and we'll come with part 2 in a couple weeks.